It's Wednesday, April 7th, and this is now on HNN.
This year, I think communication is going to be an issue for her.
HPD's embattled chief is up for review.
I think everyone should get it.
I didn't want one.
Attitudes toward COVID vaccines are still mixed, even as Hawaii continues to expand eligibility.
And today we'll explore what could happen to flight prices as more folks get vaccinated.
The impact of the vehicle when it hit the tree caused the vehicle to go airborne.
Plus, new details in the Tiger Woods crash investigation. These stories and more coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon, thanks for watching. This is Now. Jonathan and Ashley here coming to you from the HNN Digital Center. Literally just seconds ago, we got those latest numbers being reported by the state.
Yes, the state health department is reporting 76 new COVID-19 infections today and no new fatalities. Because we just got those numbers, we don't have the breakdown for you right now, but we will post those on our HNN digital platforms. Now to a story that will be developing in the coming hours. Proponents of transparency have criticized HPD Chief Susan Ballard, but we will soon see what the police commission thinks. They are expected to release their review of the chief. Lynn Kawano explains what's happening today.
Chief Ballard's annual review is expected to be released to the public today. There's a Honolulu Police Commission meeting that starts at 2 o'clock. And because of COVID, everything is different, right? So normally we would go to these meetings, the reviews would be discussed, and then the media would get a copy of that review, and we could discuss it with the chief. But because of COVID, it's all online. So we'll have to watch the commission meeting on YouTube, and whatever Q&A goes on between the commissioners and the chief, we'll have to take from that. So there's no availability of the chief after that to discuss what happened. We are expecting, and this is just preliminary, but we're hearing that she's going to get along the lines of meet expectations. In previous years, she has had very high marks, much higher. She's had exceed expectations. She's done very well in previous reviews, and especially that first year coming out after Louis Kealoha, she was very well regarded. Everybody really adored her, and she was kind of a media darling at that time. Lately, this has really just fallen off. 2020 has been tough.
Let's talk about that some more. What kind of heat has Chief Ballard really been facing recently?
A lot of it has been just her interactions with the public and transparency with the public. We had some very high-profile murders. We had a man gunned down in Aiea on his own driveway, and she never came out and spoke about it. The acting captain over homicide never came out and spoke about it as well. We also had a missing baby, a toddler, who was missing for weeks, and we heard nothing from the chief as well or the head of homicide. And later, that baby's father, according to court documents, admitted that he harmed and killed the baby. So it was very high profile. And we had a freeway stabbing as well that resulted in the death of a man. And again, we never heard from the police chief or from the police department.
And it appears over the course of the weeks of you been reporting on this issue, she did appear to try to make some sort of make good with a quick 10-minute interview, right?
Yeah, I refer to that as speed dating because that really was what it felt like. We were given 10 minutes and she went from reporter to reporter to reporter, but not where we could follow up on each other's questions. So I didn't know what Honolulu Civil Beat was asking, for example, or the Star Advertising were asking. And that makes it tough because we may have been asking the same questions with no time for follow-up. So I think that's been a big issue, but there's also been morale issues. We have been hearing constantly from Honolulu police officers who say morale is really bad right now. And to compare, Louis Kealoha meets expectations on his review from the Honolulu Police Commission. And it's important to point that out because that even happened, just not long ahead of his target letter from the Department of Justice and subsequent indictment. And now he's heading to prison.
And this week we had another high-profile case, officer-involved shooting that left one teenager dead. Will that play a role in any of this, or was all of her review decided prior to this week's events?
That will be discussed for sure at the Honolulu Police Commission meeting. They always discuss some of the current events, and certainly that is a very high-profile event that happened that involved the police department. But I don't believe that it has anything to do with the review. I do believe that the review is just about complete, if not complete. And to get this, they did talk with several officers from various different units and agencies of different ranks to get an idea of how the chief is doing. One area that she suffered on in a previous review is like, budget and planning. And, whereas this year, I think communication is going to be an issue for her as opposed to some of the budget and planning.
And I guess one thing we should point out with that officer-involved shooting and communication is that she did actually come out 5 hours about later after the incident happened and spoke at a press conference, albeit very late at night.
Absolutely, very late at night. And we were grateful to get some information to the public by the 10 o'clock news, because the public wanted to know this wasn't just an officer-involved shooting. This was an officer-involved shooting after a long chase and a crime spree, an alleged crime spree by these teenagers. There were one 18 and one 22-year-old, two men involved as well. But this was a very high-profile case. Anybody in East Oahu who was out at the time would have seen some of the events happening or seen it on social media. So it was important that she came out. Yes, it was 5 hours later, but we will give her some credit for at least coming out that night and not waiting until the next day, which has happened with HPD before in an officer-involved shooting.
All right, Lynn Kawano, let's toss it back over to Ashley.
A proposal from Honolulu's mayor to keep us in Tier 3 has been sent to the governor, and Lieutenant Governor Josh Green also told us he does not believe we'll go back into Tier 2. He gave us the update today on Sunrise.
He's got to be very careful. He's working with the gov. We can survive it, and business can survive only if it's open. But first, safety is going to be our predominating decision maker. There have been a few more people in the hospital, so we have to be careful.
Okay, so at this point, do you think we're going to slide back into Tier 2? And how soon do you think we're going to find out?
I think we'll find out today or tomorrow, and I don't think we will. I think that the mayor and the gov will at least look at it for another week or two before a change.
Okay, dose deliveries for the vaccine, those are declining. Why is that?
They've been up and down. Actually, this was a big week for us. We received 90,000 doses this week. We'll probably get 80 and 75 respectively in the next 2 weeks. It's just based on production, but it's enough for us to open up widely on the 19th. Okay,
and while those numbers actually go on the decline, we're seeing more of the vaccine actually go out to pharmacies. Some people are wondering why that's the case.
The feds decided they wanted to have a vibrant pharmacy program at the very least that reaches all the different communities. So it's very effective for us. We've now done 852,000 plus doses if you include the pharmacies in the military. So we're about halfway there. We love all of these programs. Every one of them gets the vaccine to people.
Okay. Do we need to go more quickly as far as vaccinating to combat the variants that are still out there and the potential increase in cases?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And it looks like we're on pace to do that. What about Molokai and Lanai?
Yeah, they're doing great. We want all of the neighbor islands, especially where there's less health care available, to get vaccinated fully. Interestingly, the trend has been a really steep decrease in our kupuna catching COVID and a steep increase in our younger people, 18 to 44, catching COVID. So, yes, we need to vaccinate everybody. We need to do it fast. We'll meet the president's deadline and get going on the 19th. We'll start registering people about a week before that, and that will mean every age group, no restrictions, everyone can sign up.
Okay, we saw something from Dr. Fauci yesterday saying that we're seeing more clusters tied to youth sports. And I just want to get your thought, as we're supposed to restart that on Oahu on Monday. Where do you think this is coming from? Do you think this is sports in general, or do you think these are people that are breaking the rules, not wearing masks, hanging out potentially after the game and practice? Is that what you think is driving this?
Yeah, there's not quite as much social distancing and mask wearing at such events. So if everyone would recommit to that, it will not be an issue. Definitely mask wear, continue to socially distance. As we go through the rest of April and then all of May, this is our critical time to kind of get herd immunity going. So be careful with sports, be careful with all events.
Yeah, so just to clarify, LG, because I know there are a lot of people that are very, very passionate about this. It's not the sports themselves, but the social element that might lead to more cases.
Absolutely. It's gatherings, right? Yeah. So if you have a big crowd or a training session or whatever, and people are gathering, that's when there will be spread. So if you're with your keiki or you're at one of their events, really commit yourself to wearing a mask. That's the way to stop the spread.
Well, will the cost of travel increase as more vaccines roll out? Lacey Denise joins us with those details new at noon.
The cost of travel will slowly rebound from historic lows as more people receive COVID-19 vaccinations and book long-deferred trips, according to industry experts. This time last year, air traffic in the U.S. plummeted, with 95% fewer travelers passing through Transportation Security Administration checkpoints in April 2020 compared with April 2019. This reduced demand led to a corresponding decrease in airfare prices. The average cost of a domestic round-trip ticket in the second quarter of 2020 dropped 28% from the same period in 2019, down to $259, according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. Experts who track travel deals and consumer interest say demand for airplane seats is likely to increase, driving prices back up. Domestic airfare prices are expected to rise 4 to 5% every month until summer 2021, according to an economist with Hopper, a travel search tool. And this increased demand might combine with decreased supply. Airlines scaled back routes and flight frequency in 2020, parking aircraft and furloughing staff. They may be slow to return capacity to pre-pandemic levels, even as bookings pick up steam. For This Is Now, I'm Lacey Denise.
We've got an update from Dr. Fauci about the risk of flying amid the ongoing pandemic. Here's what he had to say.
Right now, flying is, because of the HEPA filter, because of the use of masks at the level of infection in community, it is a risk to fly, but it's a small risk. The more infection you get in the community, the greater the risk. Okay. So if we get more and more people vaccinated, by the time we get to the summer, the risk of flying will be even less than it is now.
A reminder, if you're traveling inter-island, you still need to have a negative COVID test result taken 72 hours before your flight. Tourism officials say they're seeing a bump in inter-island travelers showing up at airports without having taken a COVID test. No test means you go straight into quarantine or you have to leave the island. And for trans-Pacific travelers visiting multiple islands, you may need more than one COVID test. For example, if you're a mainland visitor flying into Oahu and you leave the secured airport, you will need to take another test 72 hours before flying to the neighbor islands. Meanwhile, Hawaii arrivals by air are slowly rising, this as foreign traffic remains stagnant. Howard Dykes has the update.
For the first time in a year, we've topped 20,000 arrivals 7 days in a row. Japan traffic is 2% of normal, but domestic is 2/3 of pre-COVID. For every 2 people flying to Lihue, 3 are flying to Kona, 7 to Maui, 10 to Honolulu. More than 4,000 people a day are flying in from LAX, but we're getting 5,000 a day collectively from the 3 airports in the San Francisco Bay Area. United Airlines catering workers will rally at Honolulu Airport today at 1:30 p.m. They oppose United plans to outsource 2,500 catering jobs, including some of the workers in Honolulu. United already uses contractors at some airports, but not here. Kauai is now getting more than 1,000 people a day, 4 times the visitor volume, while standing back from safe travels. Kauai is getting hundreds of passengers daily from LAX and from SFO and from SeaTac, proof of the until now assumptive pent-up demand. Hawaiian Airlines is bringing Kauai 800 people a day. That includes inter-island transfers. Southwest and American are each landing about 400 a day there. Marriott lost $267 million last year and plans to be tight with $1 this year. Leanie Oberg is CFO of Marriott. She says they'll aggressively control costs, no matter how fast travel recovers.
New today, Carnival Cruise Line is threatening to move its ships away from the U.S. This after the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention published new guidelines, but did not include when cruises will be allowed to operate in U.S. waters. Carnival has canceled all cruises departing from U.S. ports through June 30th. So other cruise lines have already resumed operations by moving their ships to other parts of the world. Carnival has well over a dozen ports in the U.S. To reach herd immunity, it's critical that 70% or more of the population gets vaccinated. Despite overwhelming evidence that the shots are safe, some are still a little unsure. Casey Lund reports.
Well, good afternoon. We spent the morning here at Magic Island and some of yesterday gathering interviews and trying to gauge how the community is feeling about the vaccine rollout here in Hawaii and whether or not they actually want to get the drug.
I didn't want one, but if I want to go to Scotland where my money is left from last year, I had to get one. And now I'm getting number 2 in 2 weeks.
It's their own choice if they want to get vaccinated, so I just want to do it for my own good and my other people I know as well.
If everybody vaccinated in this country, the disease slowly will be wiped out. But it has to be everybody.
Yeah, I think everyone should get it so that we can go back to normal, hopefully.
There is huge demand for the vaccine despite skepticism of its efficacy by some. This week, Hawaii was allotted 90,000 doses. Next week, we get 76,000, and the week after that, we'll get 70,000. Take a look at this chart that breaks down eligibility by county. All of them are in phase 2 with the exception of us here on Oahu, which is in phase 1. That includes those over 60 years old, people with chronic health conditions, and most essential worker. Now, the state reports 30% of the population has gotten at least one dose. This graphic shows the breakdown by county, with Kauai ahead at almost 40%. More than 650,000 doses have been administered so far. We know that the very best place to go for resources on the vaccine and information, plus a way to make an appointment near you, is hawaiicovid19.com/vaccine. Reporting at Ala Moana Beach Park, I'm Casey Lund. Now back to you.
The controversial phrase, the bamboo ceiling, is used to describe hurdles Asian Americans face in the workplace. Nancy Chen explains why this phrase, first coined in 2005, is coming up for debate now.
Breaking the bamboo ceiling is how Hollywood Reporter editor Rebecca Sun described Stephen Yeun's historic Oscar nomination for Best Actor. But the controversial term quickly came under fire.
What were the criticisms of the phrase?
A lot of people thought that I had invented it, that I was using a lazy pun, shorthand, bamboo, panda bear.
Good afternoon. Inspired by the glass ceiling, executive coach Jane Hyun coined the phrase nearly 2 decades ago.
Nobody really knew that Asians had any barriers. Most of the time when I talked about it, they were like, what kind of challenges do they have anyway? I thought they were doing pretty well.
Hyun blames the model minority myth, the false stereotype of overarching success among Asian Americans. Cultural differences and microaggressions also play a role. Microaggressions can vary from commenting on a person's English to asking where they're from.
You're very, very valuable to the team, so please stick around and your time will come. That time never arrived.
Billy Mata has worked in advertising for more than 30 years. He says he felt his career stall when bosses praised his hard work while promoting others.
And I think this happens to a lot of Asian Americans, is that we have a tendency to work hard. We put our nose to the grindstone, hoping that somebody will notice. And it's not in our DNA necessarily to brag about ourselves or to boast.
Susan Im is a former retail and merchandising executive. Assumptions about her character, she says, were evident during a meeting with the senior manager.
And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, well, you're not shy. And I said, well, why would you think I was shy? He had a perception about me and was making assumptions about me, not having ever met me in person before.
And those assumptions often make Asian Americans feel like outsiders, the stereotype known as perpetual foreigners.
If you're constantly mistaken for another coworker, or because there's maybe 3 or 4 Asian Americans there, I think it's difficult to feel like you have some level of influence and credibility in that team.
Sun says the phrase bamboo ceiling isn't ideal, but believes this is an opportunity to re-examine it.
There is finally increased sensitivity among the general public to racist headlines, to racist portrayals in the media, and specifically against Asians and Asian Americans.
As you can see, it's complicated. Interestingly, Rebecca Sun told us a lot of the criticism she received online came from people outside the Asian American community. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
Thanks for that report, Nancy. Let's get you outside now. Looking beautiful out there on this Wednesday. Turning it over to Guy Hoggy with a look at your forecast.
How's it on this Wednesday? It's going to be nice today again. Granted, we do have a few windward and Malka showers falling in the usual windward spots, but really the rainfall is limited. and it's moving along quickly because of these brisk and breezy winds. So it's going to feel a little on the chilly side today, even though we are expecting lots of sunshine. So no matter where you are across state, you're going to have really nice conditions out there. Kona's going to be the outlier. They will not get the trade winds, while everybody else will get those brisk and breezy winds. So even though temperatures will run into the upper 70s, it might feel cooler than that. A little bit of a wind chill out there in the air. And because of those strong winds, we still have a pretty good size east-northeast wind swell. High surf advisory posted for all east-facing shores. It's big, it's dangerous, and it's messy. Slightly cleaner conditions up in the country, and box jellyfish still likely swimming in to south and west shore, so heads up on that. Otherwise, the weather's looking really good. A little windy today, and the winds slow down from tomorrow going into the weekend. In fact, on Saturday, the winds slow down significantly. The next chance for significant rainfall is not probably until Monday. Keep it here in Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
Investigators revealed that speeding was the primary cause of that February crash that severely injured pro golfer Tiger Woods. Danya Backus reports from Los Angeles.
The Los Angeles County Sheriff says Tiger Woods was speeding when his borrowed SUV crashed on a Southern California roadway, seriously injuring him.
The primary causal factor for this traffic collision was driving at a speed unsafe for the road conditions and the inability to negotiate the curve of the roadway. Estimated speeds at the first area of impact were 84 to 87 miles per hour.
The posted speed limit was 45. Detectives say information from the vehicle's data recorder reveals Woods never hit the brakes.
There was no evidence of braking throughout this collision. It is speculated and believed that Tiger Woods inadvertently hit the accelerator instead of the brake pedal.
The SUV crashed into a sign, traveled across opposing traffic lanes, hit a tree, and then rolled several times.
The impact of the vehicle when it hit the tree caused the vehicle to go airborne and do a somewhat pirouette, landing on its side.
Detectives say Woods was not under the influence of any controlled substances and will not be cited for the crash or face charges.
There was no odor of alcohol. There were no open containers in the vehicle. And there were no narcotics or any evidence of medication in the vehicle or on his person.
In a statement released on Twitter, Woods thanked first responders and the Good Samaritans who helped him, saying in part, "I will continue to focus on my recovery and my family." Danya Backus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
So a famous artist's portrait inspired by his teenage girlfriend is going up on the auction block now. This is Pablo Picasso's 1932 painting called Woman Sitting Near a Window. It was inspired by an affair the 50-year-old married painter was having with a 17-year-old. The artwork is estimated to bring in $55 million when it goes up for auction.
And some Game of Thrones news?
Yeah, so there are a lot of Game of Thrones fans out there, myself included, and in celebration of the show's 10-year anniversary, HBO has launched a month-long Iron Anniversary for the series. Well, telecommunications company CenturyLink did a survey to find out what Game of Thrones character each state is obsessed with. And apparently, Hawaii residents can't stop searching the internet for Lord Baelish, aka Littlefinger. Jonathan doesn't watch, so he doesn't know how controversial this is, because Lord Baelish is a creep, basically. The most searched GOT character nationwide, the Mother of Dragons, Daenerys Targaryen.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of This Is Now. We'll be back here tomorrow. We'll see you then. Have a good one.